repair a Lipo battery balance lead. Well, this is one of those videos I almost pray that people aren't watching, but if you are, it could save you an awful lot of money. Now this is my Power Hobby 8S Lipo battery. Absolutely outstanding battery, probably one of the best for high power solutions there is out there on the market. I will put a link to it below the video. However, yours truly has damaged the balance lead. Now I will say, when I talk about repairing the balance lead in here, what I'm not talking about repairing is that connector. I'm not talking about fitting any pins in there, what to do with this connector if this is damaged. I'm talking about repairing the lead where it goes into the battery, where one of these balance leads or more has pulled loose. This is a very, very common failure of Lipo batteries. So yours truly is going to show you exactly how to fit a new balance lead or repair your existing one in this video. As I say, there are some videos I kind of wish I'd not shot, but hopefully, fingers crossed, people will find this one useful and save yourself some money along the way. Let's get straight to it. Now, with my blue tape off, you will see the problem on there. I'm missing two wires completely on there. I'm not even going to attempt to put new pins into this connector. What I've done is buy a separate 8S balance lead on the internet. I'm going to cut that off approximately there, strip all the ends of the wire, and take the battery apart and show you how to fit the new lead. However, before I cut this new lead to size, what I am going to do is strip all of the plastic away here so we can see just how long a lead we need. Now, there will be one of two things on the top of this Lipo battery. Either the leads will be soldered on directly to the Lipo battery cells individually, or there may be a circuit board. That's a little bit easier to work with. Anyway, time to get an X-Acto knife out. And we're very carefully going to slice through this plastic casing. You do not want to be cutting into the Lipo itself, so we want nominal pressure on there. I can't stress enough at this stage, you just want to put minimal pressure on this plastic. You're just trying to score it rather than cut straight through it, because you do not want to cut into the Lipo battery itself. You can see there with nominal pressure on there, that casing is come on, removing that clear plastic. Step 2, we're going to do exactly the same, cutting through the black heat shrink. Now you need to take great care when using, obviously, a metal knife around the bare cells, because the last thing you want to do is cause a short simply by using your X-Acto knife. So there we are, that's one piece of the heat shrink down, and we've got a second piece going over the top of the board. So last bit of scoring on it. Now, if it's all gone to plan, I should pull off roughly along the line. This is a job where it's worthwhile taking your time on it. Every battery is going to be slightly different. Okay, that's almost the hard part done. As I say, you want to take great care that you're not touching your knife or your scissors on any of these terminals over here. The bigger the battery, the more danger you are of causing yourself a severe problem if it shorts out. If you can see the problem that I had with the balance leads there, that's what was hiding under the blue tape on there. So that lead was connected, was completely shot to pieces. And you see what I mean about the length of the leads from the outside, very deceptive. They're another inch longer inside. So whatever you do, don't cut your new balance lead to size until you've taken your old one off. Now, stripping this back, you will see the damage I had. The negative lead on the outside there had actually split in two. Positive lead is intact, and I've got these are the two leads that were missing. So what I'm now going to do is trim my new 8S balance lead roughly to size, give myself a little bit longer to strip the leads back on there, and then one by one I'm going to replace these. I'm going to use my soldering iron to remove these cables and fasten the new ones on, so they're exactly in the same order that they came off of this 8S Lipo. Now, in terms of heat, you want a soldering iron that is fairly hot, because you don't want to put a lot of heat soak into the battery. You want to be desoldering it and soldering it on as fast as possible. And the next step is to trim my new 8S balance lead connector. I've tidied up all of the ends. I'm now going to tin all of these wires, which is absolutely essential before I go about soldering on the new lead onto the existing Lipo. Just talking through about the orientation of the way the leads are going to go. You want to make sure that none of them are crossed over. So we've got a positive wire here, and that's going to go to the positive on there to state the blindingly obvious. That faces that way. The second wire is going to face backwards, so it's going to be soldered on that way if you like, but what you want to do is make sure they're not crossed over
like those two are there. You want to make sure that the wire you've got is exactly the wire you think you've got, and that they're not crossed over and you're soldering them round the wrong way. Otherwise the cells will be in the wrong order when it comes to measuring them. Your next wire is going to be soldered onto this middle section here. Then the third wire is going to be facing again backwards this way, soldered onto here, and the same, etc., on there. So each of the wires is soldered on alternatively opposite ways to each other. I hope that makes sense. While I'm cutting these wires off, I'm going to be cutting them off one at a time. Likewise, you don't want to be cutting them all off at once, where you might have this wire then shorting out against this cell. So I'm going to be working on the wires one at a time, purely in the interests of safety. And what I am going to be doing is leaving the positive and negative leads on until the last minute, as I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing with those. And it also helps with the orientation, because if you take all the leads off to start with, you're then thinking, oh, hang on, is that positive or negative? Obviously you can tell that from the battery terminals on there, but it would be easy to make a mistake potentially and solder the balance lead on the wrong way around. Which, first of all, I'm going to cut through this perfectly good lead right here. I can move everything out of the way to get... Oh, see what I mean? Whoa, Richie, something shorted out on there. See what I mean, people? Got to be so careful with this. I'm going to cut this lead away from here because I've got bare wires showing on there. So let's cut that one at that end and get that mess out of the way. Just shows even the best of preparations there. If you that shorted out when I was out of the room, the results could have been catastrophic. Now I'm going to hold the wire because I want the heat on there for as least amount of time as possible. There we go. So just like that, do the second one while I'm there at the same time. And let's have that third one off whilst we're at it. There we go. So now we can see the wood for the trees, if you like, on there. So, as I say, I'm going to leave the positive terminal on there. Now got my newly tinned wires at the ready. On it, as I say, not going to fasten the positive terminal on to start with. What I am going to do is my number one wire on to here. But it's going to need to face that way round, so I'm going to need to turn my Lipo around on there. The leads don't need to be as long, so I'm just going to trim all of those. Now, apologies if I get my hands in the way. I'm going to try and keep my hands out of the way as much as possible on here. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of solder onto this one, so I'm going to lead a little bit more on that. Now you want to keep the lead in check, because the last thing you want is the lead shooting across the balance board. Of course, you want to be holding your finger on there because you don't want that lead coming loose from the solder and shorting out any of the other cells. Hope that makes sense. We are very carefully going to ensure the wires are not crossed over like that, so that we have got wire number 2 going to cell number 2. Now, be aware, it might not be a bad idea to take the ends of the wires out of the way, because you saw then the positive lead nearly went over on one of the other terminals on there. We are now going to apply a little bit of heat onto this one. Apologies, as I say, if my fingers are in the way at all there, people. Not the easiest of things to film. Now with that tacked down, once again I'm going to hold my finger on top of it. Let me build up a blob of solder on there actually. Okay, put a little blob of solder on there, and there we go. So in hindsight, that seems a better idea actually, to put a blob of solder on where we're going to be soldering onto before putting the wire on there. I'm doing this a little bit ad hoc as we go along, but that's just double checking there. We've got wire number 1 going to number 1, wire number 2 going to number 2, and I want to move that red lead right out the way, as that is just a menace at the minute. And I'm going to do exactly the same and build up a blob of solder on our third lead here. It's so careful not to be bumping this into anything. You've got to be so conscious all of the time that the lead is not drifting aside, you're not putting too much solder on there. Now I'm going to do the rest of the leads. What I would say is I'm just going to cut through them one at a time, so we've got no possibility of any wires flashing over any of the other terminals on there. And you can remove more than one at once, but I would just say just keep cutting through those leads one at a time, so you've got no stray leads floating around anywhere near the balance connector leads. And I'm just going to work my way through the rest of removing the rest of the leads and then soldering them on just as I've shown you. And what I've done as I've gone along, I've been careful not to put anything metal too near it. I've put a little blob of solder on there, so when I'm reheating each one I've got something to go into, so I'm not going to trying to hold 3 things at once, if that makes sense. Okay, well, with all the balance leads in place, I've finally cut away the negative lead and removed the existing balance lead, which is going in the trash. So time to very carefully lever these tabs back over the negative and the positive wire and solder in the negative and the positive from a new balance lead. Now you're about to see why I left the negative and the positive tabs until last, because they are soldered to the top tag of that cell. So you very carefully need to bend this back just the tiniest bit. I'm going to remove that little bit of yellow insulation, just going to pull that back out of the way and desolder the lead from there. I've got to do the same on this side too. You're just going to curl that back and then curl it back in again when it's finished, but you do not want to break this metal. Well, I have very carefully peeled the tabs back at either side. You don't want to be bending these backwards and forwards a lot. You don't want to risk snapping them. I've put a little bit of heat on, removed the existing positive and negative balance leads on there. Now I'm going to solder my new one, my new positive and negative ones on there, then fold them back into place, wrap the thing in gaff tape for the minute to keep it nice and secure on there, and in the meantime I'm going to put some heat shrink on order. But fingers crossed, by the end of this video we should be able to test this thing and hopefully the balance lead is working and we can charge the 8S battery back up again, and that means I can run it in a 16S infraction. Well, I've soldered the negative in place, soldered the positive in place, maybe a little too much solder on there, but that's not going anywhere. Speaking of which, I'm going to give these a very gentle tug test before curling the positive and negative leads back into place, wrap the thing over with gaff tape, and then let's plug it in and see if we've got all cells back online. Now you're going to need some care and patience on the positive and the negative terminals if your battery is like mine. As I say, some have a circuit board on the top, which makes it life a lot easier. When those tabs are opened out, you don't need to fold them back over, you need to roll them back over, because you obviously don't want this piece of metal near to this cell, and likewise you don't want that piece of metal near to that cell, otherwise it will not end well. Now what I have done is simply got some gaff tape for the minute to seal over the top of the batteries. Now I'm going to do a better job on it over the coming days, but for tonight this is going to seal all of my connections and make them nice and safe. Well, there's my nice new balance lead in place on my 8S battery. Put gaff tape around it for the minute. I'm going to get some heat shrink to go over the top, but that's holding it nice and securely and insulating all of the terminals on there. Pull tested the leads, they're not going anywhere. Anyway, time to plug it in and see if we've got all cells, 8 cells, back on song. Well, got my 8S Lipo plugged in, moment of truth. Click over to the measurer. Fingers crossed, come on Richie. And we've got all 8 cells showing on there. Absolutely top result. Now, it's only got 5% charge in there because I've obviously not been able to charge the thing properly. And excuse the noise, and hopefully you can see there on the display, as I'm very pleased to say, all 8 cells are charged, balanced, and the LiPo is up to 100%, which means this battery is now fully ready to use again. Now, if I had another one of these, I could run them in something like, say, 16S infraction. If you wanted to know how to repair a Lipo balance lead and save yourself a lot of money by not having to throw an old battery away just because one of those leads has come loose, now you know how to do it step by step. You need to take a great deal of care, and I was a little bit nervous doing this, that you're not touching anything metal that you're using, like a screwdriver, a knife blade, or any of these wires when they are floating loose against the other cells and risk shorting them out, because even on something like a smaller Lipo, that could virtually explode in your face if it shorts out because of fire in your home. And something like this Lipo, which is 5000 milliamps and 8S, the results of shorting it out are, as you can imagine, are going to be fairly catastrophic fairly fast. Anyway, hope you like that video. I also hope you never have to rewatch this one again, because if it does, it means you've got something seriously wrong with your balance leads. But if you are going to watch it again, hopefully that gets your problem sorted. Like, share and subscribe if you like this video. Thanks for watching. Well, thumbs up if you like this video, guys. Post any comments you might have in the comment section below the video and hit the circle below to subscribe. And if you do hit the circle, don't forget to hit the bell.